based in India, working for recognition, protection, and promotion of human rights of people with disabilities, particularly women and youth with disabilities. Nidhi, your 5 minutes are yours. The mic.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Thank you, Women Enabled International, CRPD Committee, and all the UN agencies who supported this event. I'm just requesting for an audio cue at 4 minutes so that I'm respecting time. It's very interesting because when the introductions were being made, we generally call Rising Flame a feminist disability rights organization. And very often we were asked, this organization was founded 7 years ago, and we're often asked saying, why do you call it a feminist disability rights organization? And we said, because disability justice and feminist principles live together and perform in our work, are seen in the way we bring movements together. Personal is political. Our keynote speakers, I will be building on that. Personal is political, nothing about us without us. The slogans of two distinct movements. We spoke about the feminist movement and the disability rights movement, and thinking about these slogans. And then when we speak to each other, we realize that this is ours. Both these belong to all of us. What does it mean to have feminist principles in the disability space? And what's the feminist principle that I would personally, politically, and organizationally think about? It's sharing of power. What do we mean by sharing of power? We're talking about inclusion, intersectionality, cross-movement collaboration, hearing the voices of the most marginalized or those who are unheard, invisible in our spaces. Sharing of power is the answer and the response to all of this. Sharing of power symbolizes all of this because very often in the disability movement, we talk about hierarchies. And what are these hierarchies? One of our speakers mentioned before that many of us are seen most of the times. And then there are those in the movement who are not seen at all. And who are those people who are invisibilized? People who stand at intersections. Many of our panelists have mentioned this. Women who are deafblind, gender diverse persons, young girls. Where are we hearing them, and are we hearing them enough? When we start asking these questions, we realize that sharing of power brings a humility within each of us to say that this space is not, we're not giving the space to someone, this space really belongs to all of us. It helps us understand how to be allies. And when we say allies, it's mostly understood as allies to different movements, but allies within the several movements that this large disability movement holds. We talk about intersectionality, and it's very important here because when we talk about sharing of power, we move from a space where we talk about identity as being double and triple and quadruple and talking about marginalizations as if they were layers. We would go into a space that intersectionality becomes a point of multiple marginalizations, multiple identities, where many of us who are standing at these multiple identities because of context that we belong, we're currently holding, or the spaces that we hold, we can come up and say that we are standing at multiple intersections, but yet we are privileged in a space, and this space should be given to some of them. The idea when in India or in South Asian context, you're having a panel interfacing with the government, let's say, and having indigenous women with disabilities, gender diverse persons with disabilities, but also those standing at religious minorities living with disabilities, speaking to the government and setting their own agendas. Those who have severe communication disabilities or multiple and intersecting forms of disabilities. In difficult contexts where pushback is regularly seen all across the globe. We're thinking about not just the government spaces, but even in non-profit spaces, not just within disability, but in a larger civil society context. And I will share a little bit about my work. When we say that we will be sharing this space and power and we will collaborate with other movements, it will also mean that one of our struggles in the disability movement of naturalizing this idea of access. We talk about access is love, accessibility is love, and that's not seen in many movements. And so bringing that access piece within feminist movements, let's say, becomes really naturalized. cross-movement work and how sharing of power can make us stronger. Why is it important? If we are talking to the sexual and reproductive health rights movements and talking to gender diverse movements and speaking about, let's say, the access to abortion, to access to reproductive health, we're automatically end up tackling the issue, which is really important, around forced sterilization within the disability movement, let's say. When we work with organizations in humanitarian crisis situations, we will ensure that persons with disabilities are included, protected, but also that we become a part of the larger humanitarian response that this globe really needs in the face of rising conflict and crisis. At Rising Flame, and I will take half a minute more, just to think about where we stand organizationally. And we often get asked this question saying, what does this mean when you talk about feminist principles or setting up a feminist organization? Thinking about disabled feminist leadership, right? To think about women and gender diverse persons in the organizations, running the organizations in leadership positions. That's what we are practicing. And that's what's important. We often see in funding and other scenarios where opportunities are given to organizations that may hold a very small part of the disability, where disability may be a very small priority for them. But the major funding streams go to these organizations. The major access points in large spaces goes to these organizations. We're working to build a world where we can have gender diverse persons, women, and others be a part of leadership in feminist spaces. We're working to build capacities of women and gender diverse persons with disabilities so that they can be the leaders of tomorrow. They can help us and aid us and support us in sharing of this power and sharing of this space. And lastly, really thinking about how to build policy spaces and influence. When we bring the cross-movement collaboration together, how when we're talking about challenging geopolitical, social, cultural, and authoritarian regime and these contexts, when we all come together, we're stronger, because then the space is not just for you and me. The space belongs to all of us. Thank you.